I told you Versus the Network 2023 wasn't over yet, but you didn't believe me! We're starting round 2 of Versus the Network 2023 with an old story, but one that's just as relevant, if not more relevant today. I was going through my archive, as I often do, and I came across shelf number 226 from Southampton, Massachusetts. On it were a bunch of FX reruns of this little show called The Greatest American Hero. I quickly discovered that it was a fun show with lovable characters, witty writing, and some decent special effects for 1980s TV. And as I often do when I find a show I like, I decide to do a little bit of digging into its past. And as soon as I did, I realized that it was the perfect choice for Versus the Network number 305. What happens when the network greenlights a show they don't like? The Greatest American Hero was created by TV legend Stephen J. Cannell. He's most known for his work on stuff like 21 Jump Street, The A-Team, and The Rockford Files. This man seemed to be a hit machine. Every time he'd come up with a new idea, it would be something that either would get a cult fan base, or would be a multinational phenomenon. His latest idea, The Greatest American Hero, was about a public school teacher named Ralph Hinckley. One day, out on a class field trip, Hinckley would be visited by aliens and would be given an all-powerful supersuit. However, he lost the instructions that came with it, so now it's up to him to save the day, all without having a firm grasp on what he can do. Now, to be clear, when I say that Ralph would save the day, he would do so by fighting ordinary issues that you and I would face every day. The most extreme of these would probably be something like a bank robbery or a purse snatcher, not anything that's superhuman or out of the norm. The weirdest this show was supposed to get was the alien encounter that started this off. ABC enthusiastically greenlit the show, but unknown to Cannell, they weren't too happy with what they heard. They liked the basic concept of a guy with superpowers that he doesn't understand, but they wanted to take that character and concept and turn it into their own invention and exploit it as much as possible. As soon as production began, ABC flooded the crew with all these notes on how they wanted to retool the show, most notably in changing the style. Instead of having the Greatest American Hero fight the greatest American problems, he would become an overly dedicated special education teacher moonlighting as a hero on the side, who would fight things like monsters or terrorist attacks, thereby going against the main vision that its creator had in mind. Cannell wasn't all too thrilled with this, but by this point, he knew how showbiz worked. He knew that when you pitch a show, it usually doesn't stay the same way from the beginning all the way to the premiere. Eventually, a deal was met that Ralph would fight big, extraordinary things, but they would be more realistic than what ABC wanted. Though it is worth noting that as the show went on, the villainous force of the week would start to get stranger and stranger. The plots went from Ralph having to protect an FBI informant, to Ralph having to save his FBI agent friend from a mad scientist who runs this pseudo-cult in the middle of nowhere, who wants to perform experiments on him because he just thinks that the agent is awesome. I mean, I'm not gonna knock the episode, I thought it was a lot of fun, but it was definitely a strange choice. It's also widely believed that ABC wanted The Greatest American Hero to be a comedy. The show did have some comedic elements. Ralph's a little bit of a klutz, especially when he puts his suit on. His FBI agent friend has his dim-witted moments. But the main strength of the show is not the humor, not the action, but the characters themselves. They grow, they change, they have multiple layers. Everything else in the show is meant to enhance them. They're what's supposed to keep the audience coming back every week. ABC didn't feel the same way. They had other plans for The Greatest American Hero, ones that didn't exactly work out. Despite the fact that its creator made it very clear that he wanted The Greatest American Hero to be a lighthearted character-based drama, and in fact that is what the episodes were made as, ABC decided to market the show as if they got their way from the beginning. When you would watch ABC in 1981, you would come across an ad for The Greatest American Hero, which is, apparently, All about a hapless, bumbling oaf who just so happens to get superpowers, and while he keeps messing things up, golly gee, he's trying his best. And it never stopped. From the beginning of the show's life all the way to its untimely end, ABC would only market it as a screwball comedy. The comedic elements were blown way out of proportion, the action was kept at a minimum, and the character moments were practically ignored. That means that in 1981 or 1982, when you would see an ad for the show and get excited for what it promises, you would tune in and be disappointed because, in a sense, it was false advertising. Nevertheless, the show was able to persevere for 2 good seasons, and it managed to do something that few other shows in history have been able to do: get its theme song on the Billboard charts. To this day, the theme song is more well known than the show itself. And for good reason, because that thing is great. And while the show was starting to get progressively more surreal, ABC wasn't happy with the direction the show was taking, or rather, was holding to with an iron grip. So they decided to take the coward's way out by canceling the show as quickly as possible, though they decided to cover their tracks. While the show wasn't doing spectacularly, it was doing well enough to stay afloat, and it had a cult following to match. So if ABC decided to cancel The Greatest American Hero out of the blue, people would get mad. As a result, ABC decided to shift The Greatest American Hero to a Friday night death slot where no one would be watching. Only a couple episodes of the new 3rd season managed to air in 1983, and wouldn't you know it, putting the show on when no one was watching made the ratings dip. And as soon as it happened, ABC pulled the plug. This resulted in several episodes being unaired, and they would never be seen until the show was thrusted into syndication. I guess if The Greatest American Hero couldn't be a comedy, then it couldn't be anything at all. There have been numerous attempts to revive the show since, but they've never worked out and have all fizzled out after just 1 episode each. Then again, we wouldn't have needed those revivals if ABC decided to just be cool and let the show be what it wanted. It's a lot like when Weird Al Yankovic pitched The Weird Al Show. The network was looking for one thing in particular and wouldn't accept anything else. Only in that case, Al lied to sell the show. This time around, the creator was fully upfront with what he wanted, and the network put the show into production with the sole intent of changing it into their vision instead. This begs the question: if you hate a show's concept, if you don't approve of its tone, and you think that its goals are out of line, why would you agree to make it at all? Simply put, I think that ABC believed that they knew better than Cannell. I think they saw a great concept for a comedy here, and this guy who's made a few big hits here and there, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We are executives. We run the networks, obviously. We're the go-to authorities for what people want to watch. And it's crazy to me that when they didn't get their way, they pretended that they did, thereby ensuring that the show would never take off. No pun intended, given the famous flying scenes where Ralph struggles. Anyways, at that point, it would have been wise to just be honest with the audience and tell them what the show really was. Only then could it be a success. And that there proves that once ABC didn't get their way, they stopped caring about The Greatest American Hero. Otherwise, they would have advertised the show correctly, they wouldn't have put it in the Friday night death slot, and they would have aired the entire 3rd season instead of just cutting it in half. Thankfully, this whole fiasco didn't hurt Cannell's career, and he would go on to make several other hit shows. Like I mentioned, he is the guy who made the A-Team after all. And ABC, well, yeah, they're still ABC, so nobody really got hurt in the end. The only victim here was the show itself, or I guess since with all those pilots out there now, it's a franchise? Now, I'm not gonna say that The Greatest American Hero is one of the greatest things ever, but it's a solid show overall, and as far as I can tell, no major misses in all 3 seasons. If you're looking for an old show to get into, and one that had a lot of potential that didn't get to be fully realized, I'd say check it out. And of course, if you are an aspiring creator who's looking to pitch a show to a streaming service or a TV network, you gotta be careful. While you can't always be too picky with who picks your show up, you've still got to make sure that they do indeed want your show. Remember what happened with Baby Blues, where they picked the show up just for the name, and then completely severed all ties from the source material? Yeah, it even happened back then with original properties, as seen here. And it's still happening to this day. Remember Powerless? Of course you don't. And the network is why. Or I guess in this case, production studio. The point still stands. You gotta be careful. You gotta make sure their intentions are pure. If they think you have a great concept and that's about it, and they want to hire a bunch of script doctors to butcher the thing and turn it into something it's not, if you have the option, it's best to just keep walking. Otherwise, you'll end up being yet another greatest American hero. And don't be fooled by the great, that's not always a good thing. Well, folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? Have you seen the greatest American hero before? If so, what are your thoughts? And do you think this show would have been a hit if ABC allowed it to be what it really was? Comment below and let me know, because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. And now it's time to thank our wonderful Patreon people, starting with our Masters of Fate. Chan 11, Drew the Stew, Kev Messick, Platinum Bass, Quiet Chap, Ryan Williams, Timey and Woody Woo. And now it's time to thank our executive producers, Aaron Vasquez, Albert Robinson, Blackjack, H.R. Hoffman, Indiscreet One, Orsinus, Ravioli Supremo, Unkale, and who else but Zane. If you two would like your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then please consider donating to the Patreon. There's a link in the description below for you to check out. And we've also got a link to the Media Mementos Discord server right under that. So stop on by and say hello. Alright folks, thanks for watching the video and I'll see you guys next time.